to this fresh module of the agency blueprint. Today, we're diving deep into owning the game with your e-com agency. You might have heard about monopolies, right? But let's break down how we make that a reality in the agency world. And why is it essential for us to step up in this space? That's the journey we're on today in this module. So let's not waste any more time and dive in. First up on the list, we're going to talk about why choose an e-commerce marketing agency? Why go with this business model over the usual way agencies operate? And if you're unfamiliar with the standard agency flow, why is this model next level? Second thing we're touching on, how to rise above saturation and how to outplay those other players in the game. Look, the key here is that monopoly agency mindset, how we're about to move with that, how we're going to harness that monopoly agency thinking to rise above the saturation. And the last piece we're breaking down, zeroing in on that sub-niche. Let's get it. So, why an e-commerce marketing agency? First thing you got to get is traditionally, when we talk about a social media marketing agency, and I get it, some of y'all might already be hip to this, but the old school way focused primarily on local businesses. You'd pull up to your local dentist, that spot you grab lunch, or the place you get a fresh cut, and pitch them on social media marketing. It was a solid move and it had its moment. But there are some hiccups with rolling like that in the business. I ain't saying it's a total miss, but there are some challenges when you're trying to lay out clear returns, especially when our focus is on leads. With leads, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds or overcomplicate things. But remember, a lead ain't the same as a customer. A lead is someone showing they might spend with you, showing some interest in handing over that cash. But it's just like someone stepping into the spot. Like, if I'm pushing ads for a restaurant, I'm putting money down for those leads. A lead's like getting someone to step into that restaurant, and the hope is they're going to drop some cash there. It's like with a dentist, I might get someone to step in, maybe for a complimentary teeth cleaning, and the game plan is my client will upsell them. Be it teeth whitening, retainers, or whatever they've got on deck, that's the breakdown of what a lead is. But the twist is, a lead doesn't straight up translate to cash in hand. Yeah, there's a value to that lead, but you can't pinpoint and say exactly how much paper that's bringing in. And on top of that, you're banking on your client to secure the bag and lock down those leads you're serving up. So it's not rare for them to point fingers and be like, nah, it's on you, claiming the leads are soft, because they couldn't seal the deal, So they put it on your leads rather than peeping that they might be the snag in the whole operation. Now, when we pivot to the e-com agency blueprint, the script flips. The main reason? The return on investment is clear as day. The KPI we're targeting, and by KPI, I mean the yardstick, Our measure of success is that purchase. The main KPI we're eyeing is that purchase conversion value. It's straight up, clear-cut how much dough we've stacked for them. And that's real, just to paint you a picture. So picture it, we got all these columns laid out. Website purchases, customer buys, the whole purchase conversion value for the website, and all that jazz. And it's right there in black and white. Website purchase conversion is hitting 40K, as in 40,666 pounds. Clear numbers, no ambiguity. Break it down even more. You're looking at a cost per purchase of 14 pounds, straight up. Website ROAS, that's sitting at 4.78. So you can lay it out for them clear cut. How much we put in their pockets, what we shelled out, and the exact return on that ad spend, ROAS, that's return on ad spend. And what's that return looking like? See, that's the beauty of it. When they see those killer results, you're the one behind it. But if the results are lacking, it's on you too. It's a double-edged sword, but it gives you real control in the game. Don't let that intimidate you. Flip that into your strength. Some folks might hit you with, yo, e-commerce is just tougher. Nah, that's not the case, It really ain't. Because when you're holding the reins on your value, that means you're in it for the long run. If you're putting cash in your client's pocket and they wake up feeling some type of way, you can hit them with the facts. Like, look, we're investing this much for you, stacking this much for you. If they're about it, cool. If not, they can walk. If not, we're out. It's giving you that leverage, that confidence in what you're offering, because you're delivering them real, measurable gains. And here's the last thing. For local joints, be it a restaurant or a gym, it's not do or die for them to push ads online. And the reason for that? They got different avenues bringing them traffic, different channels funneling in potential patrons. Like, someone's just strolling by, catches a glimpse of the restaurant and thinks, all right, that place looks smooth. They might think, let's check it out. Maybe someone's searching up restaurants in the area or hitting up TripAdvisor asking, what's popping around here? Word of mouth plays its part too, and the list keeps rolling. Or say you just moved to a new spot and you're on the hunt for gyms. You ain't gonna be scoping out a gym like 40 kilometers out of your way, right? So these local spots have their own channels pulling people in. But with e-commerce, the script's a bit flipped. Their bread and butter, when it comes to traffic and customers, is leaning heavy on that online advertising. And if they ain't executing on that front, it's gonna hit the growth of their business hard. Beyond that, they're watching, seeing other e-com brands turn their hustle into straight-up empires, all off the back of social media marketing. They can't afford to sleep on that. So they're always peeping these wild success stories, and it hits them. If they don't have a solid, consistent strategy to invest in pulling customers, getting them on their site, and flipping those visits into sales, their business might flatline. Because without that, unless they're working some magic on the organic marketing side, nobody's going to catch wind of what they're offering. Unless they're dropping fire content and catching a wave on TikTok, it's a tough climb for them. And that's the reality for most out there. But for us, that's a win. Because on top of everything, we're not boxed in by any geography. We're playing on a global scale. E-commerce business heads get that, because that's the terrain they're moving into, you know? Doesn't matter if you're posted up in Pakistan, India, Spain, France, or wherever, the map ain't holding us back. We're everywhere with it. You can tap in with anyone across the globe, and they're cool with it. They view it as the usual, because that's how they're moving online too. And another thing, where you're from doesn't set limits. Say you're coming up from a developing nation, or you're in a spot where the online business wave hasn't fully hit yet. That's a non-issue. You've got doors open to places like the US, UK, Spain, the whole of Europe, really. Always remember that. Plus, the usual ways folks reach out, those methods hit different with e-commerce clients. Why? Because their whole hustle is online, just like ours. Exactly. Platforms like social media, email, LinkedIn, shooting over a Loom video, and all that, they connect deeper, because these e-commerce folks are plugged in all day. But with local business heads, man, they're on their feet, in the mix, hands-on with their brick-and-mortar operations. It's a different world for them, right? Those e-com bosses, they're already in the digital space. Their whole empire runs online. Their moves are made online. So when you come at them with social media, DMs, emails, LinkedIn, it resonates. Another thing, most of these e-com folks by this point, they've rolled the dice on someone online, brought them on board without even a face-to-face. That's just how they move. Whether they're linking up with a virtual assistant, partnering with an agency, or bringing in a new team player, a lot of their squad, especially in this era where the home office is the new norm, you know? With Zoom and all these platforms taking the front seat, a big chunk of their operation is digital. They're all in on that online wave. Lastly, we've got that demo call and those strategy sessions. I'll get into that in the bonus section of this program. We'll lay it out, give them a front row view of what we bring to the table, breaking it down with processes and results, showing them straight up how we can put more money in their pockets. You know what I mean? And one more thing to keep in mind. Generally, e-com businesses got a better cushion when we're talking profit margins compared to those local spots. We're looking at averages hovering around 50%. And there are some sectors in e-com like cosmetics or supplements where those margins, man, they're sky high. Just some food for thought. With those fatter margins, they got more room to double down on what's making them money, like online ads. That's more growth for them and in turn for our agency. Straight up. And the bottom line? Business owners, they get a kick out of seeing their money work for them, multiplying. It's like music to their ears, you feel. They get a clear picture of the paper we're bringing in for them. Being straight up and transparent, we can show them the receipts, like, look, this is the cash flow we're generating for you. And that's the wave with this new direction, the e-com marketing agency style. It's a whole new game, and we're here to play it right. If you weren't already tuned in, that's the motive behind this model, and trust, it's got massive potential. But now, let's shift gears a bit. If we're stepping into this scene, how are we going to stand out? How are we going to outpace the competition, especially when some of them been in the game? Let's dive into that. First off, you got to grasp this concept of the echo chamber effect. See, social media algorithms, they're deepening that. With all this information flooding in, it's like we're losing sight of the real scale of people's views or movements. For a lot of folks out there, things like social media, marketing, and e-commerce, they're still fresh, maybe even completely new. But it feels like everyone's on it and trying to dive in. Why? Because social media has this way of feeding you more of what you've already seen. If you dive into that agency model before you know it, that's all you're going to hear about. Everywhere you look, it's about the agency model in that online space. Makes it seem like that's all anyone's on. Look, first things first about saturation. I'm going to put you on to how to break through real saturation, all right? But more than that, we got to adjust how you think about it. A lot of folks out there, they think it's more saturated than it really is. So that's the first thing I wanted to touch on. If you're looking to break free from this echo chamber vibe, and if it's been weighing on you or holding you back in this space, you got to approach it with a fresh perspective. You think it's too packed out there? Feeling like everyone's doing it? Man, take a moment. Go have a drink with some old buddies from school or work, maybe your folks or some family. Start talking about EMA or e-commerce marketing. Most of them probably won't even know what's up with that whole scene. In most situations, you'll be the one with all the knowledge. Remember that. And to paint a picture for you, think about how vast the world is. There's so much out there. You might link up with one of those friends I talked about, and he's deep into investment banking. Then you got another buddy all about law, another one's saving lives in medicine, you know? There's art, engineering, building stuff, marketing, the world's vast, everyone's on their own path. Let's say we're talking about the big picture, the world's interests, and what people are really vibing with. We might see ourselves in the marketing lane, right? But even within that vast world of marketing, social media marketing, it's just a piece of it, man. Just a slice of the whole pie. Inside the realm of social media marketing, the whole social media marketing agency game, that's just a fraction, man. And when you narrow it down to that social media marketing agency space, you gotta think, who's really stepping up? Who's out there making moves? You gotta ask, who's really out here grinding? Not just those scrolling through videos or hopping into every free Facebook group they see. Who's actually putting in that work? And from that crew, who's got the right blueprint? Who's put their money and heart into bettering themselves? It's all about separating the talkers from the doers. Just a handful. Out of all those with the right blueprint, who's really pushing forward, making things happen? Not many, right? And on top of that, we're not even deep in that social media marketing agency lane. That's the thing. We're in a niche inside a niche, you know? Even fresher territory, the e-commerce marketing agency scene. Everything I just broke down still holds true. So while SMA is already its own pocket, the e-commerce marketing agency, it's even more unique, even tighter, because we're nested within this whole e-commerce vibe. So when you really break it down, our spot in the grand scheme of things, it's minuscule compared to these global interests, like the giants of finance, law, and medicine, that feeling you get from social media, like everyone's in the know and why aren't more people jumping on it. It's all 'cause of that echo chamber messing with our perception. Truth is, in the grand universe of things, we're just a tiny dot when it comes to awareness about this business model. But with that being said, man, it's crucial for us to find that unique edge, you know? To stand out from those who are actually playing in this field. We gotta make our mark, differentiate ourselves from the crowd. We're not here to be another face in the crowd, competing with every other player, not even one agency. By carving our own lane, that's how we'll see explosive growth, moving faster and rising higher than anyone else in the game. Competition is for losers. I resonate heavy with that phrase. It's all about this idea I picked up from Peter Thiel. Dude's levels above me in experience, co-founded PayPal and all. What he's putting down is that a legit company isn't just about creating value. It's also about holding on to a piece of that value they bring to the table. One of the gems he drops is about how the real game-changing companies, they start by zoning in on a super specific niche. They dive deep, and in that space, they aim to dominate, to become the only big player, like a monopoly. It's all about being the king of your own castle, ruling your own territory for those not in the know, a monopoly. And you can look this up if you want the textbook definition. But it's basically a business that's got the game on lock, overshadowing any competition. They've got a major slice of the market pie, holding it down stronger than anyone else in their lane. He breaks it down into these two distinct types, monopolies and those in perfect competition. The way it plays out, monopolies come out on top, big time, while those companies in perfect competition. They're left scrambling. We take this knowledge and fit it right into our agency model perspective. Here's the thing about monopolies. They're solid, built for the long run. They're not constantly looking over their shoulder, because competition is slim to none. Plus, they're rolling with more capital, right? Now, on the flip side, you got these perfect competition businesses. They're all pushing the same product, no unique flavor. They can't even set their own price because everyone's peddling the same deal. Man, they just go head to head, dropping those prices, trying to one-up each other. Neither of them really dominates because they ain't got that special, something to stand out. Their customers are hip to the game. They know what's being sold and what everyone else is charging. At the end of the day, they ain't really cashing in. You feel me? These agencies, they ain't embracing that monopoly vibe I'm about to put you on. We trying to build something that really stands out, that can rise above all that chatter. We ain't trying to be just another Facebook ads agency doing the same thing for e-commerce clients. If that's the move, then join the line, because there's 100 others doing the same thing, you know? We're out here trying to get results quick, and doing the same old won't get us there. It's wild when you think about it. Look at these real-life monopolies out here. They're holding down like 66% of the search game. Amazon? They got almost half the e-commerce scene with a 49% share. And Microsoft? They're running the Office suite world with a crazy 87.5% share. When you're talking about those perfect competition markets, it paints a picture. You feel me? Look at hospitality, agriculture, the airline game. Brands in these spaces, they struggle to really take over and blow up on a big scale because everyone's just battling over prices. It's tough out there. Everybody's out here chasing the same spotlight, you know? So how's this relate to the e-commerce marketing agency vibe? Like I touched on earlier, most folks just dive in and scope out the e-com scene. What's next? They're like, I'm feeling this e-commerce marketing agency thing. I've seen this dude Jamie chatting about it. I gotta get in on this, right? But then they just jump into the whole e-com scene, trying to cater to all e-com clients. Then they quickly see there's agencies like mine, and even bigger ones, you know? Agencies that have been in the game for a minute, holding it down for years. They're already staking their claim in that space. So they're basically stepping to these big-time agencies that got more money, more crew, all that, right? And when they try to make moves against these giants, they end up falling short, man. They just can't keep up and they crash. They get taken out when they try to square up. And the real reason? Because they're trying to face off with the big players. That's the slip most folks make. Jumping into the deep end of a huge market right from the jump, hey, spot the potential in e-commerce and dive in head first. But right there in the deep waters, they're surrounded by sharks. These agencies got more clout, more street cred, been around the block, got the skills, the stories, the wins, and compared to them, you're just trying to stay afloat. You can't outplay them at their own game, man. And on top of that, who wants to be number 4, 10, or even 20 in the scene? All these agency owners that ain't making waves, they're all in the same boat. They get caught up in that same old competition and can't break free. They all out here trying to mimic the next, but end up feeling down because they're just blending in. They trip up aiming for that vast e-commerce scene. And this whole cycle, this inability to stand out, it's causing a wave of what I'd label as Me Too agencies all pitching the same thing, in the same lane, chasing after the same clientele. That ain't the vibe. It's straight up no bueno, eh? So how are we gonna sidestep this competition and take down these other agencies? We gotta approach this like it's David versus Goliath. Let me break it down for you on how to get the upper hand against the competition. First off, know your opponent. When we step into that premium e-commerce arena, there's really two kinds of agencies we're squaring up against. Let's get into it. There are two types out here. First, you got those do-it-all agencies, you know? They're out here handling everything, from restaurants to clinics, even hair salons. But they're not sleeping on e-commerce either. And then, on the other side, you have those broad e-com agencies. These do-it-all agencies have been on the scene for a minute now. People recognize them. They've built that name. They're out here trying to cover all the bases. Their game is strong because they've got that credibility, that history behind them. They come with those testimonials, those real results, and years of wisdom and knowledge. You know, the flip side to that is they might be spreading themselves too thin. Like, for the e-com agency, they ain't really dialed into any specific sub-niche. They're out here trying to embrace these massive markets, which can be a blessing and a curse. Because when you're trying to capture that big audience, sometimes you might miss out on the specifics, the nuances. It's like they're trying to speak to everyone, and that's a tough game. They're like this massive elephant in the room, you feel me? They're heavy, moving a bit slow because of their size. Personalizing for those sub-niches becomes a challenge when you're that big. But you know, it's not just about understanding their moves. We gotta look inward too, recognize our own strengths and weaknesses. It's like knowing the beat, but also feeling the rhythm within. We gotta know both sides to truly navigate this. Look, let's keep it 100. Here's what's missing from the equation. You might not have that experience under your belt, probably lacking those results and testimonials, and that track record, it's not there yet. But that's just where we're starting from, you know? It's all about the journey and the grind to get there. Yeah, we're lacking that right now, but it's cool. Everyone's got to start from somewhere, even me. All those stories you've heard about, they started from the same place. But what we got going for us is direction. You've put in the time, you've put in the effort. You've got that drive and that hunger, man. It's all about channeling that energy and making moves. The beauty of where you're at? Flexibility. 'Cause you ain't weighed down with all that baggage, not being super established. It's a blessing in disguise. You don't have to juggle all those sub-niches, from restaurants to Linux, diving deep into e-commerce, navigating the wellness scene, and then hopping over to apparel. Nah, you're free from all that. And because you're not tied down, you can move and pivot smoothly. One more thing we've got in our corner: knowledge. We've scoped out the scene so we know the players. If we decide to walk down that broad e-com path, we already got the intel on who we're up against. It's like having the playbook before the game starts. Knowledge is power, and we're coming in informed. Here's the real gem. It's all about that factor of 10 rule, that last move advantage. You don't gotta be the pioneer, the first to step into the scene. Nah, the key is showing up and delivering something that's 10 times more fire than what's already out there. It's not about being first, it's about being the best. Making sure your offer stands out, that's the wave. When you dive into history, it's clear. Look at Microsoft. They weren't the first, but they dominated the OS game for the longest. Google? There were plenty of search engines before, but now when you think search, it's all Google. And Facebook, if it ends up being the last name in social media, that's major value right there. It's not always about that first move. Sometimes it's about that lasting impact. Making sure you're the name people remember, that's the key. We gotta balance the scales with what we bring to the table, acknowledging our ups and downs and theirs too. But we gotta bring something to the game that's on a whole different level, you know? Something so fire they can't even step to us and we're in our own lane. What's the move? A niche agency, right? This is the wave I've been on. This is how we elevate without even breaking a sweat. It's the simplest play to outdo these established e-commerce spots from jump, without showcasing past work, without having those testimonials, without even having that experience under our belt. It's all about positioning ourselves in that unique space. That's the blueprint right there. As a niche agency, we zone in, real specific, real deep. We dial into that particular space, and those 1 to 3 clients we bring on board, they're going to be right from that niche. Listen up. In this e-commerce world, you've got 2 main lanes: the product-focused niches and what I like to call behavioral niches. Now, with these product niches, what sets them apart is they're all about one type of product, like tech, for example. If they're in the tech lane, they're pushing tech gear. If they're in that fashion zone, they're all about the fits, right? But when we're talking behavioral niches, it's deeper than that. It's about the ethos, the values they represent. Like if they're on that sustainable wave, that's the whole vibe they're pushing. So it might be sustainable fits, sustainable wellness vibes, or even sustainable beauty essentials. But the core, the heart of it, is that shared value system. Those are the avenues, the paths you can choose to dive into when you're picking out that sub-niche. So the key is to lock into just one of those niches. By doing that, we'll get ahead in the game real fast. Think about it. How many agencies you know that are truly dialed into, let's say, the sustainable e-com space? Not many, right? That's where the advantage comes in. My dude started out focusing on outdoor rec brands. That's a niche lane, real specific. How many agencies you think are really zoned into just serving those outdoor rec brands? Barely any. I'd even wager none, you know? That's how my boy made his mark. I'm gonna break down the perks of this approach. But first, get this. With product-based niches, the major thing linking these brands is the product they're pushing. With those product-driven niches, there's a level of consistency. You know what you're getting into because it revolves around that same product. But the downside? Maybe it lacks a bit in the story, the feels. Now, on the other hand, when we talk about these behavioral niches, it's all about that shared ethos, values, and what they stand for. There's a lot more heart in it. Makes it simpler to vibe with them, weave a compelling narrative, and really tap into something more profound. On the flip side, with behavioral niches, there's a bit more blending with other sub-niches. Service predictability might not always be on point, but whatever path you choose, it's all good. Every lane has its own flavor, but they all bring results. I'm going to guide you on how to lock into that perfect sub-niche. But before we dive deep, there are a couple of benefits I want you to marinate on. And by now, you've probably caught on that I'm not just about laying out the blueprint straight up. I like to give it context. For sure, I'll break down the how-to, but I always make sure to dive into the why behind it. It just makes the whole vision clearer, you know? And here's the thing to remember. There's value in specialization. People are willing to invest in that expertise. Everyone feels they're one of a kind, and they want that recognition. They want you to really get them on a deeper level. Like, picture this. You got some pain in your shoulder. Think about it. You've got two choices in front of you. One, you hit up the general doc. He's seen like 10,000 people throughout his career. Impressive, right? But out of those, maybe only 10 came through with shoulder issues. Now, your other option? The doc who's dialed into just shoulder problems. He might have only seen 100 patients in total, but each one came to him for that shoulder expertise. Which one you leaning towards? Out of those 100, every single one was about shoulder issues. So, given the choice, who you rolling with? My bet is you're leaning towards the shoulder expert, right? Because at the end of the day, we all gravitate towards that specialized touch. People are willing to shell out more for that tailored expertise. And decisions? Made in a heartbeat. Like, imagine you're heading up an apparel brand. You see someone dialed in exclusively to apparel. It's like, that's my person. They get the vibe, they understand the grind. If someone's zoned into what I'm about, I'm naturally drawn to them. And if we play our cards right, which trust, I'm going to show you how in this program they'll pick us every time. Especially over those general e-commerce spots. They might dabble in apparel, but they're also juggling a million other things. This other crew, they ain't living and breathing the scene like our guy is. It's the difference between someone who's got their finger on the pulse and someone who's just skimming the surface. If you're deep in it, you know the competition, you understand the landscape, because that's all you're dialed into. It's a whole different level of understanding. If you're all in on that apparel and fashion wave, then you're the name that pops up when folks think of that lane. You become the main player, the authority in that world. There's this thing called in-group, out-group bias. What it boils down to is people naturally lean towards those they see as part of their in-group, those they vibe with, over those they view as outsiders. By zeroing in, you get that deep insight. You're up to speed on who they're up against, the strategies that cash in, the lingo they're speaking, what gets them hyped, and what's stressing them out. It's like having the playbook to their world, because you're so tapped in. That's how you connect on a real level. Knowing the ins and outs of Facebook ads is key, no doubt. But the real gem? That deep understanding of their world, their hustle. Because that's their everyday. Clients will value and respect that you get their grind, because that's the reality they're living in. It's about more than just ads. It's about understanding their vibe, their journey. We're all drawn to what's familiar, right? We vibe with people who get our world, who are into what we're into. It's just natural to connect with folks who share our passions, our interests, our struggles. Once you lock in with one client in a particular sub-niche, the door just swings wide open. It's way easier to onboard the next one in that same lane. So let's say you're tuned into the apparel scene. Once you've made that first move and got your foot in the door, the rest just flows smoother. When you're all about that apparel life and it's the only thing on your radar, landing that first client becomes more feasible. You're speaking their language, you're in their world. And once you've got one apparel brand vibing with you, the domino effect kicks in. When you're reaching out to other brands in the same scene, having that first client in your corner, it just amplifies your cred. If you're out here casting a wide net over the whole e-commerce landscape, it's a different ballgame. Say you lock in with a tech brand. Cool. But then, if you're shooting for a home decor spot next, having that tech client on your roster helps, but it's not the same seamless fit. By really honing in on that specific lane, not only did we even the odds, but we got that upper hand, right? Against those do-it-all agencies and those e-com spots we talked about. That's like the quickest win you can get. You ain't got to grind for 3 years to catch up, get clients or any of that. Nah, we just zero in on their weak spots. All it takes is how we present ourselves and fine-tuning what we bring to the table. We'll dive deeper into that in the third module on organic. To be honest, those bigger agencies, they're all over the place, kind of bloated if you ask me. It's wild how they can't even keep up with us. And you know why? Because they can't really mold their brand to fit that specific lane like we can. Look, an agency that's been doing everything for everyone for years, they can't just switch up and claim they're solely about tech, right? So if it's between me and them, and we're going head-to-head for a tech client, and I'm deep in the tech scene, maybe even got a client there already, that's going to be my win. They're going to roll with me, no doubt. It's set up for us to take over. By jumping into a more focused market, we can own it in no time. And the wild part? Ain't nobody else moving like this. Nobody's really diving deep into that specific space, man. It's getting hard for them to even catch our vibe now. That's our edge right there. A lot of these agency heads who aren't vibing with my program or soaking in what I'm teaching, they're out here struggling, man. Trying to make moves in this massive sea, going head-to-head with these big bloated e-com giants. It's a tough scene if you don't know the game. So like I said, the last thing I want to touch on, and real talk, this might not be for most out there. If it ain't for you, just let it slide, all right? Especially if you're feeling good with your English game. You know, it ain't gotta be all smooth and polished. But if you're feeling more at ease in your own language, in your own lane, you can definitely focus in on that market when we talk about how deep we should dive. Market size is the big factor. One of the real perks of e-commerce is we can get into the global game. But if you want to zero in on a particular country for language reasons, although if you can understand what I'm saying, that's probably not the case. If you're really vibing more with broadening out, don't box yourself into a tight sub-niche in e-com, you know? Especially when you're already narrowing things down with language. Keep it open if you're already focusing on language. That's specific enough. You can really own that space, like diving deep into the German e-com scene or making waves in the French market. Think about it, supporting those French or German e-com brands and really being the go-to in that lane. It's all about finding your groove and dominating. Picture this. Normally, you'd go with something like tech, apparel, fashion, or fitness as your sub-niche, right? But there's a twist. Instead of that usual route, you could take a geographical angle. That's where the game changes. Look, if you ain't feeling that deep dive into sub-niches, just stick with e-com, but put that local twist on it, like focusing on German e-com or French e-com. But only switch it up like that if English ain't your comfort zone, all right? Keep it authentic to where you're at. Remember that 8? With that out the way, let's dive straight into the first worksheets and get everything set up in the program. First order of business, picking your sub-niche. I got you. I'm going to guide you on how to get it right. All right, right under this video, there's a link for that Picking Your Sub-Niche worksheet. Just hit that link and then tap on this next link to grab a copy for yourself. You want to make it your own, right? So hit that link, and when you land on Wool Docs, just go to File and hit Make a Copy. Super key. Once you've got that sorted, you can put your own spin on it. Don't even try to tweak the original doc. Ensure you make a copy and then do your thing. Like I was saying, locking in your e-com niche, that's your ticket to turn your EMA into that standout agency, cutting through all the chatter out there. Here are some essentials you got to keep locked in your mind, and you can peep this on your own time too. But remember, choosing a lane like tech e-com, that's not a life sentence, man. You ain't tied down to it forever. Don't stress over this too much right now. Once you start bringing in those first clients and you're hitting that 10 stacks a month mark, that's when you can entertain the idea of switching things up, rebranding. By then, you'll have built your rep and capitalized on that early advantage, that little edge you started with. It's not some monumental life choice you're making here. And while every sub-niche has its vibe, there are some that'll just click for you. And trust, as you dive into these questions I'm about to drop on you, it's going to make sense which ones fit your groove best. One more thing, it's all about moving forward, not getting it perfect from the jump. Don't burn weeks overthinking this. Put in the work, analyze it, and once you vibe with a choice, stay loyal to it. No second guessing. Like I mentioned earlier, we already chopped it up about the ups and downs of product-based sub-niches and those behavioral niches. I laid out some examples for you, right? But don't get it twisted thinking those are your only options. Like I mentioned, my guy Tal, he went with outdoor rec, and that wasn't even on the list. It's all about finding what resonates with you. Trust your instincts and think for yourself. The examples I've laid out, consider them a launch pad to get those ideas flowing. You can roll with some I've mentioned, no doubt. I've even thrown in some behavioral sub-niches to consider. But don't sleep on coming up with your own vibe if that's what feels right. There's a few lanes you might want to steer clear of, though. Talking about info products, digital goods, like books or online courses, their sales game is a different beast. I'd suggest you don't get too caught up in that direction. Got some key questions for you? These 4 queries? They're going to guide you in pinpointing that right niche. But one thing I really need you to get? Passion, while it's cool and all, isn't the main ingredient here. It plays a role in the mix, no doubt. But remember, it's more about the vibe you bring to it. Now, if you land on a niche that checks all the boxes from these next 3 questions and gets you fired up, that's a win, man. But just rolling based on pure emotion? That's a quick route to creating something the market ain't vibing with. We can't just be in our own heads, thinking only about what we want. Always got to keep an ear to the streets, feel me? What's the market saying? Who are we serving? What's their real hunger? What are they craving? 'Cause let's keep it real. The market ain't losing sleep over our passions. That whole talk about do what you love or chase your passion, it's not always hitting the mark. We gotta be dialed into what the streets are really asking for. Let's break it down with these questions. Dive deep on this one. First off, what's that sub-niche you've got a little knowledge on or wouldn't mind diving deeper into? Get clear on that, and let's move in sequence. For sure. I've dropped some gems in here that you'll want to peep before diving in. Next up, think about this. What's something you cop or get into just for the love, in your chill time, as a hobby? Jot down like 3 things. Ow, been spotting any waves in the market? Any sub-niche that's shining a bit brighter these days? Is there a lane that's just popping off at the moment? Drop like 3 of them down. Last piece, jot down 3 skills you're already packing. Those could give you a leg up when you're deciding. Once you've reflected on these, the path should be pretty lit up for you. If things are still looking hazy, hit up the community with your questions. But for real, trust your gut. Think for yourself. These questions are designed to get you there. To wrap this all up, after vibing with those 4 key questions, weighing your options and peeping the scene, your e-com lane for your agency should be, well, whatever that answer lights up for you. It's your move, your call. That's the first worksheet in the bag. Now, moving on to the next, it's all about diving deep and really understanding your sub-niche. Right below this video, there's a link to snag that PDF. Do your thing, hit that link, grab a copy so you can tailor it to your vision. The whole vibe with this PDF and the plug and play, it's to get you fully tuned into your sub-niche. 'Cause the deeper you're connected with your service and niche, the smoother you're gonna be at pitching it. It's all about mastering your craft, really understanding your lane. Here's something to chew on. A lot of folks get wrapped up in knowing every little thing about Facebook ads or whatever service they're offering, right? But flip it for a second. What do you think your potential client is more in tune with? Their niche or your service? Think about where their head's at. Their niche, no doubt. Why? Because they're living and breathing that space daily. They're up at night thinking about their competition, ways to elevate their product, how to vibe better with their customers. Rule number one when you're trying to connect: speak on what's already playing in their minds. The deeper you're dialed into your sub-niche, the sharper your shot at bringing them on board. It's all about crafting your message so it's hitting just right, speaking to their heart, and offering real solutions to what's keeping them up. So I've got a few questions lined up for you to dive deeper into understanding your sub-niche. Trust, as you move through this journey, you'll become a master in that lane. And when we touch down on Module 3, we're diving into that organic flow of pulling clients in. Once you're deep in the game, scouting out prospects and vibing in that space, your grasp on that sub-niche, it's gonna skyrocket. Right now, we're just dipping our toes in, getting a feel for the scene, you know? Consider this a warm-up, just getting you in the zone and prepped for what's coming. First thing I want you to think about: who's really running the show in your e-com sub-niche? Break it down. Say you're vibing with pet brands, for example. Do your thing. Dig in and figure out who's really leading the pack in the pet world right now. Who's setting the trends? Let's get familiar. Next up, what common vibes are you picking up from these top players? Anything you notice? Maybe they're all about that bundle life, pushing similar deals, or their landing pages have that same look and feel. Even down to the colors they're rocking. What's resonating with the crowd? Let's decode their moves. Maybe there's a pattern on their Instagram, like they're vibing with a certain style of photos, right? Whether it's in their marketing game or how they're branding themselves. What threads are you seeing? And let's zero in a bit, spotlight the top 3 brands in your sub-niche. So, what's their secret sauce? What's making them stand out in the crowd? Could be they're winning with those unbeatable prices. Or maybe they're killing the game with that lightning-fast delivery, like drop it on your doorstep the next day type deal. Or it could be they're backed up with a ton of love from their customers, racking up those testimonials. Jot this down to really grasp what's hitting hard in that specific sub-niche. Now, what's their crown jewel? That best-selling product? If it's not straight up in your face, a good hint might be what they're showcasing front and center on their homepage, or the one getting all that review love. Drop in that link to where the magic happens, the landing page for their star product if you can. Got it? Cool. Now, dive into those landing pages, especially for those bestsellers. When you're in there, what's the vibe? Any patterns or common threads that you're picking up on those pages? What's jumping out at you? It could be a slick testimonial from a happy customer, those shining 5-star reviews catching your eye, or maybe they're flaunting that smooth checkout process. Whatever's popping out at you, make sure you jot it down. Last up, let's dive into their Facebook ad game. Swing over to their Facebook page, hit up that page transparency, and click on See Ads. When you're in there, what's their move? Specifically for that top seller. What's their ad copy saying? How are their creatives looking? Take notes on how they're pushing that bestseller to the front lines. Drop those screenshots down here so you have a visual reference to come back to. Remember, as we progress into Module 3, you'll be diving even deeper. But for now, this exercise, it's like a warm-up, getting your head in the game, getting you tuned into their frequency. And then, one last thing, check out their About Us section. It's where they spill on who they are and what they're all about. Take that in, feel their story, and see how they present themselves to the world. Dive into that About Us and see what they're putting out there. What's their big mission? What's driving them? And from that, cherry pick 3 to 4 words that they're leaning on heavy. Like if they're talking transparency, jot that down. If they're throwing around words like passionate when talking about pets, make a note of it. These are the vibes they're putting out, and understanding that, it's crucial. Keep an ear out for the language and the tone they're using. So if they're out here using terms like no animal testing, animal-friendly, pet-centric, or owner-focused, make a note of all that. Those aren't just words, they're the heart and soul of what they're about. They're speaking to their core audience with that lingo. By getting these words and phrases down, you're not just reading their marketing game, you're really tuning into their vibe and what they stand for. It's all about getting deep into the mindset of that sub-niche. So, by the time you've wrapped up with this sheet, you should be feeling pretty plugged into what makes your specific sub-niche tick. This ain't the finish line. Throughout this journey, you're going to master your lane. A lot of the insight, that's on you. You're going to find yourself vibing with your specific lane, really connecting with it. And trust me, when you start linking up with these companies, you'll see the depths of it. Look, it's straightforward. Finish up that picking your sub-niche sheet, and also dive into the understanding your sub-niche one. Don't sleep on them. Get them done. And with that vibe, I'll catch you in the next session.